Hey everybody, JJ here. I am back for another special Wednesday edition of Zoom Networking. And oh my God, do we have a good one for you today. Our guest speaker is a young man who is amazing. He's intelligent, he's personable, may I say charming, just a really great guy, successful investor, leads by example. He's a part of the Pace Morby Sub2 community. If you haven't heard about Pace's community, look for it. It's not very hard to find, but you could find Creative Financing by Pace Morby. It's a free Facebook page, and you can actually interface, engage with, and work with Pace's students. But with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. Marlon Johnson. Marlon, how you doing today, brother?
Hey, JJ, I'm doing good. How about yourself, man?
Oh, man, I'm fantastic. It's every day is a great day. Years ago, I had nothing to do. Now that I'm in real estate investment, I have no time to have nothing to do. I'm busy from friggin' 6 in the morning to friggin' 10 o'clock at night. And I love every minute of it. It's the epitome of, if you like what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's where I'm kind of at, but we're not here to talk about me. Brother, really quick, a little bit about your background. What'd you do before you became a real estate investor?
Yeah, great question, JJ. And first off, let me just say thank you so much for having me here, for bringing me into your community. It is absolute rock stars in here. Everybody is super great. I love that you're teaching everybody how to put themselves out there on social media. Just phenomenal community. The Facebook group is amazing. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here. What I was doing before real estate was actually a sport called parkour. You ever heard of it?
Called what?
Parkour. So check this out. You ever see those guys that were jumping rooftop to rooftop and like doing flips off of things? Yeah, that's what I pursued that from the age of, about 19 till I was about 26. Yeah.
Wow. That's some crazy stuff. I wondered, they didn't have a pretty good retirement program in that though, did they?
Hell, man, they had no retirement program. Heck, you could barely make a living off of it. But I gotta say, happy, man, like happiness galore. It was an absolute, pursuit of passion. And funny enough, it actually led me to real estate because, man, I loved that parkour community so much. I was an athlete. I was a coach. I had students all across the U.S., over 1,000 students, right? Kids as young as 5 years old, upward of to some folks in their 50s and 60s, right? So I really had a wide spectrum, but most of my students were young men and women. And honestly, when I realized at some point, JJ, they were looking up to me and I was becoming a role model for them. And I recognized where I was at in life. I didn't necessarily want them to follow me down that path because although I was happy, I wasn't financially stable. I didn't feel any control over my finances. And I lived in New York, out in Long Island, a very expensive place to live, to try and make a living. So I started looking for something more. I had to look for something that could allow me to make more money. And ultimately I landed on real estate investing. Among many things, real estate investing is where I decided this was going to be the vehicle that took me there.
And, in the time I've been in Sub2, I've seen nothing but your name all over the place. And as I talk about all the time, as a new investor, and to everyone who's watching this right now, you need to make the effort to be visible so that people like Marlon become aware of who you are. Because they're so busy, these rock stars, I'll just say, they don't have time to help people they never heard of before. So if you make yourself visible and you make an impact in your community, you need to be memorable, because if you're not memorable, you're forgettable. But back to you, my friend. How'd you fall into Sub2?
Yeah, no, great question. So, a little history on how I found my way into Sub2, because it is the best community I've ever been a part of.
Absolutely.
And I've been a part of some amazing communities. I actually, one night I'm home. This is fresh as I'm getting into real estate, JJ. I'm still just trying to figure things out. The world is shut down due to this global pandemic. And a buddy of mine he phones me at about 10 o'clock at night, a little after 10:30. You might know him, Will Iarza. He's also in Sub2. Mm-hmm. And he's like, man, you need to go on Facebook right now. I'm like, Will, it's bedtime. You don't call me after 10. I'm going to sleep, right? But he's like, just adamant, you need to get on Facebook. You need to get on Facebook. There's this guy. He's teaching creative financing for 24 hours. I'm like, wait, what? So I fall into the trap. I open up my Facebook, and lo and behold, there's this dude in Arizona standing in front of a whiteboard just teaching creative financing. And now, JJ, I've been at this point pursuing real estate now for maybe about 30, 60 days, trying to figure it out on my own. And I heard about creative financing, but I hadn't really quite wrapped my mind around it. And this guy, this total stranger, is just like, I'm feeling like Neo in the Matrix. He's just downloading information into my mind. And I was dead tired that night, Leo. I go to bed early, JJ. I go to bed early. And what ends up happening is I stay up from about 10 p.m. till about 8 a.m. watching this guy, learning all things creative financing. That when I finally pass out at 8 o'clock in the morning and I wake up, maybe around noon that day, I just remembered thinking, I know creative financing. I felt like Neo when he's like, I know Kung Fu. And with that being the case, when I realized how much value I had soaked in from this man, I was just like, I need to be closer to this. I need to be around this. There's something special here, and I need to investigate and invest. So from there, I jumped in both feet into sub 2, no looking back. And honestly, it's been one of the greatest decisions of my life. I've made the best friends I've ever had. I've taken my business from literally having never done any sort of real estate deals to doing wholesale deals to now buying, holding properties and doing fix and flips all virtually, and just learning how to build a business and be a better person.
Fantastic, man.
A plug for sub 2 either. I can't speak highly enough of it. It truly is what it is.
Yeah, no, I couldn't be in more agreement with you. I've had a chance to meet Pace Morby on a few occasions. Humble, kind, nice, friendly, extending, completely different than my prior experience with my prior education program. But enough of that. So with no further ado, brother, I'm going to step out. I'll let you have the mic and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JJ. So what I really want to do today is I wanted to come into here, and my main goal, my main mission is to deliver value to JJ's community, because JJ is just a rock star gathering amazing people, like-minded individuals in a room together. So I want to what I want to do is pass information on to you that is beneficial to you. And hopefully what it does is it inspires you to have new perspective and to hopefully think about your situation from a different light, because we don't have enough time to dive into every single person's business today. So hopefully this just gives you whatever catalyst you need. So I'm a huge proponent of something I refer to as the campfire effect. And the campfire effect is something you're all experiencing right now, right? This campfire effect, and let me give you a little story about this. This campfire effect is something I learned about from Cody Barton, where Cody taught me that there's a power in getting into the right rooms. Because you see, when Cody was a young man, he was about 18 years old, he fell into MLM, right? Multi-level marketing. I think we have all had an experience with that, where your buddies invite you out for dinner or bowling on a Tuesday night, and you're like, wow, that's real nice of them. And you show up into this weird warehouse at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, and there's a lot of chairs set up, and then you realize you're being presented something. Well, Cody found himself at one of these meetings one night, and like everybody else, a lot of these other young men and women, he got very excited, right? They get everybody all excited on the prospects of you can make this amount of money and you can have residual income. So at the end of that meeting, Cody did something a little unusual that most people don't do, right? Where most people run out of the room, hey, this is a scam, or most people run out of the room, I'm going to be rich. Cody went to the front of the room. He didn't go out the back. He went to the front, and he spoke to the two guys at the front. He said, look, you guys are clearly doing something right. Like, I saw the cars you drove in. I see the clothes you're wearing, and I see the confidence you're walking with, right? So I want to know, how do I be successful? Right? Like, how do I be successful at this? I want what you have. And they took Cody and they said, look, I want you to look around the room right now. It says, most of these people in this room are going to fail. What do you mean they're going to fail? Most of these people in this room are going to fail. Because here's what happened here tonight. What happened here was they came in and they got this knowledge and they got this information. So they came and they stood around the campfire. So they got warmed up by the campfire. And now what's happening is they're taking a bit of this fire home with them today. Like they're putting it on their torch and they're taking a little bit of this fire home. And a lot of these people are going to walk out that door and they're going to take that fire out into the world thinking, you know what, I've got the fire. I can do it. I don't need anybody or anything else. I've got the fire already. And while they're out there in the world's kind of a cold, dark place. It's going to start to cool that fire down. It's going to start to cool their heat down. And unfortunately, a lot of these people aren't going to find a home. They're not going to find a place to house this fire. So what he explained was a lot of those people are never going to come back. He says, Cody, if you really want to be successful at this, what you need to do is you need to keep coming back to the campfire. You need to keep coming back to the campfire, getting close to the fire, as close to the fire as possible. Let the fire continue to warm you up. So Cody took his advice. He kept coming back to the campfire. He kept showing up to the meetings. He kept going back to the same sort of meetings over and over and over. Before Cody was in his 20s, he was already a millionaire, right? Because he took the advice. He understood the importance of getting around the right people, getting around the right campfires. So when Cody shared that to me, I took it very serious. I took it very literal, and I took it very serious. And I made it a mission of mine to put myself in the right rooms, similar to this room. I made it a mission to go and be around like-minded individuals who are successful, who can grow me. This helped me, like when I got into sub 2, this is what helped me go from having never done any sort of real estate transaction, being unemployed with maybe about $3,000 in my bank account. So I really didn't have anything. I was jobless. I was living in New York at home with my mom and my sister, and I had less than $5,000 in the bank. With that start, I've been able to do over maybe about under 20 wholesale deals. I've been able to buy 17 doors between 9 properties, been able to buy and hold 17 doors. And we've been able to do 5 flips in a span of 2 years. So I took it very serious when I was told I can go around the right people and be in the right room, and I would grow from that. So what I do now is I actively make it a point to go and be in rooms that grow me. Just recently, and this is what I want to share with this group today. Just recently, I went into one of the biggest rooms I've ever been in. I got to go into a room with a billionaire, 2 billionaires. It has always been a dream of mine to go and sit with a billionaire, to go and ask a billionaire questions, because look, I don't know about y'all, but I didn't grow up with billionaires around the corner. I actually grew up thinking I was poor. So the mindset and the thought process that those individuals have, I wasn't in that environment. I wasn't exposed to that mindset. So in order for me to gain access to that room cost me $40,000 to gain access to. And I want to share with this group what it was that I learned when I was in that room. So is it okay if I share with you what I learned while I was in that room? Cool. I see some thumbs up.
Definitely.
Perfect. So I'm going to give you 3 major things that I learned, right? And it was really surprising to me because it's one thing that you hear it, but then to see it up front, it's a whole nother thing. So the very first thing that I learned was that at that level of individuals who are making and who are worth over $1 billion, the very first question I asked was, and I'll tell you who the individuals were, by the way, just to give a little bit of context so you know, because some of you may know these individuals. It was Grant Cardone and his partner, Brandon Dawson, right? And I asked, right, because these are very high, powerful, high net worth, very powerful people. I asked Grant, I said, hey, Grant, just curious, how important is it for you to get in rooms like this, right? How often are you making it a priority to go and put yourself in these different rooms, to go be around these different campfires? Because I know I've been given that advice, but I'm just starting out, right? Like, what are the big dogs doing? Like, because eventually I want to be there, right? So what are you guys doing? When I say, Grant looked at me and he said, what, are you serious? He said, I put myself in a room like this every single day. And the way he answered the question, it was almost like, wait, are there people out there that think that they should not be doing this every single day, that they should not be surrounding themselves with the right people, that they would allow themselves to be in the wrong rooms for even a moment. The way, like, it shocked him that someone would even have a question like that. And it was so interesting for me to see that his body actually responded to my question in that manner, which showed me the importance, the emphasis that they put on protecting their energy, on putting themselves in the right room, connecting with the right people on all fronts and all levels, whether it be business partners, whether it be employees, and whether it even be clients. So this is where we started to go into detail, because I don't like to just get surface level answers. So I'm going to share with you. So if this isn't beautiful and scripted the way you might want it to be, I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you the real. We spoke about this concept of being in alignment, right? Being in alignment with everyone and everything that you are going to do any sort of business or life with, right? And this is coming to me from billionaires, right? These are guys that, you think we're going to be sitting there and talking about like the technicals and your KPIs. And what they found to be one of the most important things that they could possibly teach people, that they can justify taking $40,000 and teaching and giving you back. This is what they emphasize. This is where they put the value. The importance on understanding and getting into alignment with the people that you do business and life with. Now, in order for them to do this, this is where it got strategic, and this is where we really went in deep. And this is what I want you to understand. It came not from taking the time to understand the rest of the world. There was such a deep study and understanding of the self. So if anyone knows me, my name is Marlon Johnson. My name is also Mindset Marlon, because I believe in the importance of mindset. So do these individuals. So what I learned and what I saw and what we dove into is this understanding of self, right? They study themselves just as much, if not more, than they study the actual business and industry they are in. Studying one without the other would be a total failure. A total failure. You would be you'd be swimming against the current. You'd be pushing the boulder uphill. Right? When they took the time to actually begin to deep dive and study themselves, and I'm talking personality tests, DISC assessment, right? Understanding exactly who they are, understanding the nature that they most naturally exist in. What they began to do was make sure that their businesses were able to align with that sort of work, with the personality types that they had. By taking the time to understand this, what they also did was they learned how to communicate properly with themselves and properly with others. Major keys of focus were put here. Recognizing that we have certain personality types. We have drivers, we have influencers, we have analyzers, and we have people that are stable. Recognizing where they fit on that spectrum. Recognizing that every part of that spectrum serves a different purpose in their business. So when they started to break this down, Brandon said, look at me, for example. He says, I'm a driver, right? He's like, I have to understand this about myself, and I have to be able to express this to my people. I have to be able to communicate this to my team to let them know what that means. It means when you come to me, I really want to help you. I really want to be able to give you the answer. However, as a driver, I want to go. So the best way for me to be able to give you any sort of value, any sort of help, is when you come to communicate to me, I need you to understand the best way to get anything out of me is to get to the point. So when you start telling me the story behind the problem, I don't need all of that information. Just tell me what you need. So this was really interesting to me. This was really interesting because I think we spent maybe about 2 hours talking about and understanding what it means to understand the self. And I saw at this very high level, again, they were able to understand themselves so much that they recognize, this is the key differentiator, they recognize that although they have these different personality types and they're most one, right? They live in one most of the time. The other bits of the personality charts, they have what they refer a gas tank to. So check this concept out. Everyone's familiar with Robert Kiyosaki's 4 quadrants, right? The E, S, B, and I, right? We've seen that, right? And everyone's familiar with the 4 seasons, right? Spring, summer, winter, fall, right? There's this thing about fours, right? If it's wintertime, does it stay winter forever? No. If you start off as an employee, do you stay an employee forever? No. So if you're a driver, a lot of people take level 1 and learn what their personality type is. I'm a driver. That's who I am. I'm analytical. I like to take my time to make decisions. Recognize that you may naturally have a larger gas tank, or hopefully this gives you a new paradigm. What your natural tendency, what those personality tests really show you, is not necessarily fully who you are, but who you have the capacity to be with the least amount of effort. So when you look and it shows you that you're an analyst, recognize that you have a large gas tank. You have a large gas tank for that sort of work, for spreadsheets, for numbers, for critical thinking. You can stay in that sort of work for extended periods of time without getting exhausted. That personality type, that gas tank, allows you to work alone for extended periods of time without needing other interaction. You're capable of going in to driver mode for a little bit, but you might not be able to stay there for 8 hours a day. You might be able to go into driver mode for 20 minutes at a time. You might be able to go into influencer mode and be persuasive for about 45 minutes to an hour, right? Recognize that you can move into these spaces. The importance of understanding this about yourself and about your people is not that you go and say, how do I make my influencer gas tank so much larger? It's, how do I recognize that I'm lacking in the influencer gas tank? So I need to bring on partners who have that possibility, who have that large gas tank. I need to bring on employees who have that large gas tank. And when I need to communicate with them, I schedule out my time to communicate with them for maybe 30 minutes at a time, because that's how long I can exist in that gas tank. And I go into that mode to then communicate with them, to create that bridge. And our meetings only last but so long. This was something that maybe you've heard before. And this is, I want to emphasize this. This might be something that you've heard before, you've learned before. When I spent time with them, I saw that they actually lived this. Who's ever taken a personality test when they've applied for a job, or maybe you've administered personality tests for employees that you've hired? In most cases, after you've taken that test, how often did you and your employer or your employees or your coworkers or partners come back and review the results? Was it the one time after it was done? Right? Some of you are saying never. Right? Was it maybe once a year? Was it during your quarterly exam? How often did you come back and review it? At their level of having a multi-billion-dollar business, they said they review those charts almost daily, and at the very least weekly, and absolutely every time before they have a meeting with one another. Like when the boss is getting ready to call somebody in for a meeting, he's actually pulling up that individual's chart, because he wants to understand, how do they best communicate? Who are they? Who do they view themselves to be? This was so crucial. When I realized how much emphasis they put on the understanding of self, the understanding of who are we, who am I, who are my employees, who are the people I am working with, that they recognize that the people are the asset, that the business doesn't move the people move the business. So instead of putting our focus on the business, we need to put our focus on the people. My mind, I couldn't, you know how when you learn something, you can't unlearn it? It was a moment like that where I realized I will never unlearn this. I will never see things the same again. So that was one of the biggest takeaways that I had when I was inside there, when I was spending time with these individuals. Now, among that, and I actually wrote this over here because I want to make sure that I don't forget this. I really want to make sure that I'm able to deliver some sort of value here for you all tonight, because this was so impactful for me. This was so impactful for the way I do business. This was impactful for the way that I choose which clients I want to work with. Right? Like, I'm only now working with people that are in alignment because I understand myself. And I can tell you, life has gotten a lot less stressful and business has gotten a lot more traction and the deal sizes have gotten a lot larger, right? And we hear this all the time, but do we actually do what we know? Do we do what we hear? We have to make sure that we are implementers as well. We're not just note takers, but we're actually implementing on the information. When we hear something and it's like, whoa, that resonates, that we actually take action with that. Because 95% of the population can agree, but 5% of the population actually does. So the second thing now that was a major key here was something that JJ actually teaches all of you. And big shout out to JJ for teaching this because he does a phenomenal job at this. See, I used to think it was what you knew because I grew up going to school. I grew up with Caribbean parents and they said, you are getting an A, you are going to college. Like I didn't have a choice. So it was the only choice I had was, hey, which college am I going to work hard enough to get a scholarship to? That was the choice I had in my house, right? And I don't regret it, however, after a little while, I said, no, I don't think it's what I know because I got these straight A's, but it's not really doing anything for me. No one really cared. After I graduated, no one cared. No one asked me about my report cards. Can you believe it? Nobody asked me how well I did in algebra. Not a single person. So then I started realizing, oh, maybe, you know what? It's who you know. But you know what? I started learning a lot of people. Heck, I host a podcast. It's called Into the Mind. I have amazing guests on, and I host plenty of people. However, that wasn't quite doing it either. So what was missing, right? I knew a lot of things, and I knew a lot of people, but JJ says something to y'all, and hopefully you're writing notes and it's really hitting home. It's who knows you. And I learned this in the room because Grant Cardone, he became very influential in the world of multifamily real estate for one major reason. He created omnipresence across social media. He became known across social media. He went from virtually being totally unknown to plastering his face everywhere you went. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. You couldn't get away from the man. Whether you liked him or you hated him, you knew he existed. And there is power to that. There is so much power to that. See, because what happens is a lot of times we don't want to put ourselves out there for a major reason. We don't want people knowing what we're up to. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to look like idiots. We don't want to seem like we're bragging. Whatever the case is, the list goes on. Ultimately, it boils down to most of the time us caring about other people's opinions. Because when it registered into Grant's mind that people need to know him in order to do business with him, and he needs to be able to do business in order to be successful, and he needs to become successful in order to serve the people that he needs to serve, he threw all that stuff out of the game, right? He started playing with the end in mind. He said, if my end mission is to serve as many people as possible, first off, they need to know who I am so I can serve them. Second off, I need to be able to do enough business. I need to be able to create enough, right? I need to go out and produce and create to help. And if we know anything about how business is done from people to people. You can't tell me a single business on this planet that does not involve humans interacting with humans. So that means they need to know you. At the very least, they need to know your business. Now, people prefer to know people over business. So Grant decided he was going to be known everywhere. Everywhere. And this is something that you all should be doing, like JJ teaches you, putting yourself out there, sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because here's what's really cool about it. I used to look down on people. I'm going to be honest. I feel like I could be honest with this group. I used to look at the people that would post on social media constantly and think, wow, you can't just go outside and not be posting a picture. Does everyone really need to know what you ate? Do people really need to know that you found another real estate deal, that you're starting a new business? How conceited can you possibly be? That used to be my thought process. And then I realized social media is a tool, right? That would be similar to me looking at a man doing road construction and he has a jackhammer. And I'm like, wow, do you really need to show the world that you're strong enough to move a jackhammer? It's a tool and he's getting a job done. So when I look at social media, I look at it as a tool. It is a tool that allows us now to reach out to almost every human on the planet. That's incredible. That you have something that allows you access to communicate and spread a message, spread a narrative, spread a story of your choosing across the entire globe at the snap of a finger. Talk about wanting to make a world a better place. You have the power to put out positive messages every single day, inspirational content every single day. A lot of us, we say the internet has this and that. Well, why don't we be a part of the solution and add some great quality content to it, as well as recognize, here's what's beautiful. I want everyone to understand this because they helped me understand this for myself. Recognize that you feel like, well, there's already so much content out there. The world doesn't need another Melissa or another Joelle coming and talking about entrepreneurship or financial literacy or how to save money on your taxes or how to cook something cool at home, right? They could share whatever, but you think that they already see it. The challenge is you're at your campfire. They aren't there yet. However, their only connection to that campfire is you. Right? Because they don't see my posts, right? Your community, your friends, the people in your space who need to be moving forward, who need that help to get to the next level, you're their lifeline, right? The goal is you want to say, hey, grab onto me. I'll be your anchor, but let me anchor you over to the source. Let me get you connected, right? But for now, I'm the only lifeline you have, because the source doesn't see you and you don't see the source. So I have to act as the bridge in the middle. So when I started realizing it was actually my duty to go out and to serve at this place in my life while the business is growing, while I am growing, to not wait. Please don't do this. And we talked about this. Please don't do this. And maybe JJ has talked about this as well. Don't wait for it to be perfect before you decide now it's time to share. Because that's the second thought process. That's that lie that we tell ourselves. Well, you know what? I'm just getting started, right? Let me get a couple deals under my belt first. Let me really dial it in. Let me get everything nice and perfect so I can, when I'm ready to share, I can share the perfect process. Here's the thing. When you come out with the perfect process and you're just like ready to go, now you are too far away, right? You lose relatability. You're no longer real. You're now, well, of course it's easy for you, Tony. Man, you got it all figured out. Of course you could do it. Man, like it just, Sean, everything comes so easy to you. You just win after win after win. Start sharing your journey now. Show the people that it's a process, right? Help them understand and give them an opportunity to be a part of the journey so that they can connect to the journey now. They're like, oh, wow, she's starting out right now. And that's all. She doesn't have that many resources and she's going to do this. And they're going to watch consistently, right? You have that ability. It will grow your business for so many reasons. And one of which I didn't realize, and this actually happened to me. This is how I want to share this. The way I've been able to do business, the way I've been able to go out and buy properties has been because I've been able to raise capital. I've been able to raise money from people in my network. People who knew me, not people who I knew, but people who knew me. We were able to connect and they were able to see what I was doing. And that did the job of building credibility for me. That did the job of building credibility for me because they were able to watch the journey and watch the progression and see, hey, this isn't a perfect man, but it's a progressive man. It's a man of integrity. It's someone who's going to get in front of their problems. It's someone that when a problem happens, hey, you know when a problem happens because I've been sharing it on social media, right? You get to watch into my life. It's almost like the Truman Show, except we do have the ability to turn it off. I promise you that, right? So recognize that it's a tool. And when you're done using the tool, just like a hammer, you can put it down in the toolbox. It gets a bad rep because a lot of people aren't using it purposefully, right? If somebody drives a car into a house, we don't say cars are bad. We say that person was irresponsible with the car. So let's not throw social media out, right? Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's instead utilize this tool. Let's be better with it. Let's be an example, a role model of how it should be properly utilized to grow your business and grow your community. because it does have that power and it's not going away. So the fact that we have it right now, we're able to be on a Zoom call like this. Some people are watching this on YouTube and it's weeks later, it's months later, it's years later, and they're able to dive into this sort of information, be a part of our campfire. That's technology. So let's recognize that. And again, this was taught to me, right? This is where they said, look, if we can go back in time and we had to restart from the very beginning, thank gosh we don't. But if we had to restart from the very beginning, we would have made sure that we put our faces everywhere. What they do is they actually take other people's businesses in, right? And they will help those individuals. And a lot of the time, what they're doing with these individuals, among many things, is they're working on them as a person. They're helping them self-identify, recognize their strengths and their weaknesses, to really get a hold of that, recognize their personality, understand thyself, know thyself. They're helping them to push that message out there, share themselves with the world. And then the third thing, and this is what we really dove into, and this is, I want to make sure that we really dive this part home: systems and processes. It is absolutely critical and crucial to creating a business to understand that your business must have systems and processes. The beautiful thing about us is a lot of us as entrepreneurs are visionaries. We can see the potential. We can see the vision. We can create the vision for others. We can see the opportunity that no one else sees. Take it from the invisible and make it tangible. The challenge that we often run into, though, is our businesses are operating off of hustle. And hustle is not an operating system, right? Hustle is a season. It's not an operating system. And a lot of times, what keeps people on the left-hand side of the quadrant, what prevents a self-employed individual from becoming a true bona fide business owner, is the systems, right? It's actually bridging this gap. And now this is what I'll share with you, right? Because it's a process. Don't think like, I don't have my systems together, I'm messing up, right? I don't have my systems together, I'm messing up. I'm in the process right now of actively creating my system. I came to this campfire today to let them know, hey, guys, I need help with putting systems in place for my fix and flip business, right? I figured out systems for my wholesale business, but my fix and flip business, guys, like, help me. Oh my gosh, help me put systems and processes together for me. Because we need those systems and processes for the sake of being able to actually fire ourselves. Because if you can't fire yourself from your business, I got news for you. You don't have a business. You've got a nice, high-paying job. That's what you have. You're a Superman or you're a Superwoman with a high-paying job. Recognize that what you need to do is get into this habit of working on the business, right? And that it's okay. And recognize that working on the business, I want to tell everyone this. Sometimes it might not feel like work right away, because the mindset that we came from is that we need to go out and physically work with our hands. We need to go and have a laborious day. There needs to be sweat on our eyebrows in order for it to be work. We need to be running around and hustling around in order for work to be done. That's how we often feel. However, the sort of work that we learn to do as business owners, as world changers, as leaders, is strategizing and then deploying the right people, delegating the right people, giving them an opportunity to shine, giving them a space and an environment to grow within. We have to architect that. We have to create that. We have to imagine that and then bring that environment into the world so that they can then begin to grow. That's our job as a leader, because that's the sort of work that not everybody is willing to take on. Do you know why not everybody is willing to take on that work? If you've ever taken on that work, you know why. It's a lot of responsibility. It's scary. It's scary when you are now in charge of the livelihood of someone else. Because I now know that when you're working for me, that you're depending on me to perform. You're depending on me to go out and find opportunity and to create an environment and to lead us down the right place so that you can take care of your family, so that you can take care of your community. So recognize that there's an importance to systems being built, that it's something you want to study. It's something you want to understand, that putting systems and processes in place is not optional, but it's mandatory. So these were three of the most important things, the most important takeaways that I got from sitting down and spending time with two billionaires over a weekend. Now, what I want to do is, I don't want to just talk at you, because I can talk forever. Trust me, I have a podcast, guys. I can literally talk forever. However, information is best when it's interactive, right? When I was in school, I used to hate when the teacher would just talk at me. It's like, let's ask some questions. Let's have a conversation. That's where things really get to change. So JJ, is it all right if we open this up for a conversation?
Most definitely, it's okay.
So what I would love is if you all have any questions or something you want to share, right? Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Please, if you disagree, I love that even more, because this is how we're able to gain real, true new perspective. Just raise your hand, use the little reaction button on Zoom to raise your hand, and let's get the conversation started.
Cool. Well, while we're waiting for those to roll in, and guys, please raise your hand, please ask questions. I love what you had to say. Phenomenal. You truly lead by example. You really do, and to hear you speak, I mean, we spoke briefly, but you're so eloquent. You're such a great speaker. You're so motivational, so inspiring. Guys, it gets back to being visible. Here we go. We got the first question up. Let's get this young man in here. Danny Cho, you're on with Marlon. Do you have a question? What's your question?
I want to say, I think building the systems and finding the right people to partner up with has been kind of my journey right now. And I think we all have different personalities, and trying to find that mesh, out there, I think it's been kind of a struggle for me. So I just wanted to say thank you. And I don't know if you have any tips for me, as I'm just getting started. I'm going direct to sellers out there. And I feel like I have that visionary perspective, but I don't have the mindset of structuring a system and things like that. So, I'm really looking for a person who could help integrate that, So if you give me any tips or, point me in the right direction, that'd be great.
Yeah, no, Danny, I absolutely love that, man, because, about a year ago, that was the exact same, the question you have is the question I had. So I relate to it big time. So one thing, I'm gonna give you two things. First, I'm always a reader, right? I believe in finding information for myself. So there's a book by Dan Sullivan called Who, Not How. If you haven't read that book, go read that book immediately. Everyone should read that book, actually, regardless of where you're at. That's a staple for your library if you are going to be an entrepreneur. Who, Not How, by Dan Sullivan. So second, Danny, what I would ask of you is, I want to know, you said you're a visionary. Tell me, what's one of your superpowers? If you're hey, leave me in a room, let me have it myself, let me take care of work. What would you find yourself doing? What would you want to be doing? Or what would you be hey, this is the best use of me and my skill set and my time?
Yeah. I think my superpower would be, I love getting belly to belly with people and talking to them. I feel like, I was door knocking right when I joined the meeting, or getting back home from door knocking. So it's I like going out there and talking to people. And even if, they're not there, I'm talking to the neighbors, seeing if I could find some people that will hunt out deals for me or bird dog, So I feel like I have that within me. And I do care about people. So, I want to make a difference in people's lives, even though it's not getting a deal on that part of that property or real estate. If I could help them out in a different way, I think that's kind of really where my strengths come in, and just my mentality,
Perfect. I love that. So you have a superpower of being able to go out and connect to people, to talk to people, right? To go and build rapport. right? You're not afraid to, like you said, go be belly to belly and eye to eye, which is amazing. And I'm glad that you recognize it as a superpower, because oftentimes the hardest things with identifying our superpower is it's something that usually comes to us relatively easy and relatively naturally. So we don't think much of it, right? Oftentimes the things that are our superpowers, we don't think they're all that special because it's just always been there, right? So what you could do as a way of attracting the person who has your opposite skill set is going and this is where the power of social media comes from, leveraging this by saying and making a post, maybe going into one of the Facebook groups, into the creative finance group, and to go into JJ's Facebook group and saying something along the lines of like, hey, my name is Danny. I have a superpower. I love talking to people. Love, 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 love it. I will knock on their doors. I will call them. I will send them letters. I am not scared to talk to the neighbors, talk to the postman. I just want to talk to people. So if you hate talking to people and you never want to talk to another seller again, but you are good at putting together systems and processes, and you just like organizing things, and you're like, hey, look, I just want to generate leads, right? I know how to do that because that doesn't involve me actually having to talk to anyone. So I can text them, or I can put up the code callers or figure out the data. And you're good at that, and you don't ever want to talk to another person, reach out to me, DM me, let's have a conversation. Because now what you're doing is you're identifying what you're good at. You're identifying, because your ideal partner isn't going to necessarily have the same superpower as you, right? Your ideal partner is going to value you as much as you will value them, because you're going to be doing the thing for them, because now you're looking at it from how can I bring value to the ideal integrator, to the ideal systems person. That person doesn't want to talk to people. Whereas you're like, hey, I don't want to figure out, just load up the Podio or load up the system, tell me when to call the person, and just let me talk. Right? That's all you want. So they're like, perfect. That's a fair trade to me. So let them know what they will never have to do again and what you're willing to do. And what's going to happen is someone, you don't know who the person is yet, they're going to read that post and they're going to be like, oh my gosh. They're going to raise their hand. That's me. Oh my gosh, he's talking to me. And that's what it should feel like. So this is why I recommended, by the way, read Who Not How, because they break it down in a very, very specific way on how to do this. Right? When I was running a larger organization and had about 15 employees, this is how I was able to identify and find some of my key players, people that I'm still doing deals with today, although we don't run that large scale of business anymore, people that I'm still doing business with today. In fact, one of those guys, I was just on the phone with him earlier today, he was my dispositions manager, the best dispo guy I ever had. He came from a post like that. That's how I found him. Or I should say, that's how he found me.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, guys. And I think the social media thing is, dude, I'm just learning. So I just got on Facebook right when I joined Sub 2-3 weeks ago. So like JJ, when he reached out, man, I was like, dude, this is exactly what I needed. And actually last Friday, I saw you, Marlon, on that Sub 2 Zoom about hiring and scaling. So that was amazing, dude. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, Dakota Luan, you are on with Marlon Johnson. What's your question?
My question's in regards to the putting yourself out there on social media and really getting past all those mindset barriers that you might have. I've pretty much refrained from posting on social media for, I know what is like mindset troubles. And so I guess I'm just kind of wondering what are your suggestions for going about it in an authentic way, or in a way that where I'm not feeling disingenuous about everything that I post, and I don't know, really just having second thoughts about posting after a weekend.
Yeah, no, Dakota, that's a great question. I want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. So I'm going to say what I think I heard, which is essentially how to get over imposter syndrome when posting. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, imposter syndrome.
You know, and that's really fair, because that's how I felt. Felt like at the beginning, it felt very much like an imposter syndrome, until I started realizing it was imposter syndrome, because when I was going on social media, I was trying to pretend to be somebody else because I wasn't comfortable with me yet. I wasn't proud of me yet because I had this expectation that here's the challenge. I don't have that story where people are like, I was failing out of school. So like entrepreneurship was the only way. How's a straight A student? Right? Like school came relatively easy. I had strict Caribbean parents. So school made sense. I didn't really get to go and hang out with friends. I got to go and read books all day and write reports for my parents. Like that's what I did that was my childhood. So when it came to like understanding, I intellectually got things pretty quickly. So because I understood things intellectually, I had this feeling on the inside that like I should already be doing it. Because I understand it, I should have already implemented it. So then when it came to like this real estate stuff, it's like, all right, I understand it, but like, man, I haven't closed the deal yet. Like, guys, it took me 8 months to close my first deal. So this is 8 months of me being on social media talking about real estate, and like I hadn't closed the deal yet. So in the very beginning, I'm feeling like, man, I'm over here talking about like I'm a real estate investor now. Like, what sort of real estate investor doesn't close the deal? What sort of real estate right now as a real estate investor? All I've done is spend money. That's it. All I've done is lost money, and I had to reframe it. So when I started to reframe it, and I remembered it was very clear. I had this moment, and I promise you, this story comes full circle. When I was getting started, I was making a lot of phone calls, right? I was making a ton of phone calls. And it was a way of learning how to make these phone calls and watching these other guys, these other people on social media, the Max Maxwells of the world, the Paces of the world, the Jerry Nortons, the Quentin Floreses. And I'm like, I'm trying to copy them. I'm trying to be like them on the phone. And like, it got so bad to the point where like Quentin does like a laugh, like this deep belly laugh while he's talking to sellers. And I tried doing the deep belly laugh at the same time. And it just felt so weird and disingenuous. And I remember that day I hung up the phone after getting cursed out, of course. And I said, you know what, screw it. If I'm going to get cursed out and like, people aren't going to respond to this, I might as well just at least be myself. Like I'm done trying to be.
Right.
And when I started being myself, I started getting more traction. And then what also started happening was when I started posting on social media, my posts were no longer about like me, like trying to be those guys. It was about me just documenting my process. So when people said go out and create content, that didn't resonate with me. But one day I heard somebody say, you just need to document the process. Just document your process. So that made sense to me and that clicked. So what my early social media posts looked like, Dakota, was me taking my phone and saying, hey guys, so I'm learning about real estate investing right now. A lot of these people like mentors and gurus and courses are telling me that I need to pick up the phone and do this thing called cold calling. So today I'm going to just try and cold call. I don't really know what the outcome is going to be, but just watch. All right, guys, I just called 20 people. I got cursed out 18 times and 2 times no one answered. Right. And like, I was just sharing like those little moments. Hey, I made this many cold calls today, got this many FUs, made this many offers. And that was my content that I was creating. And it was engaging with people because that was authentic. And I realized I don't have to make, Pace's level of content. I don't have to make Jamil's level of content. I just have to do what I'm doing. And when I really started to watch those guys, the people that we really resonate with on social media, if we pay attention what they're actually doing, if we really look deeply and we want to mimic, they're just being themselves. They're just being their authentic versions of themselves. Because, again, one day I'm a very reflective person. I sit and I reflect. And one day I'm reflecting and I'm thinking to myself, Dakota, I'm thinking, wait a second, Quentin, Max, Jamil, Pace, Carlos Reyes, all these guys are really successful at the business. And yet they are all totally different personality types. They all do the same things, but they do it in different ways. Oh my gosh, I realize what they're all doing. That's the same thing. They're all being themselves. And it comes back to what we spoke about, where it's know thyself. Right? Know thyself and accept thyself. The reason I was so afraid to share myself was because I was afraid of rejection. Right? I was afraid of being judged. It felt like, my friends who knew me before, who maybe I've gained their respect, now they're going to look at me trying this new thing and sucking and failing at this new thing. Or maybe all the other people who are entrepreneurs, who are already successful investors, that they're going to see me and be like, what is this kid doing? What is this idiot doing? And so I didn't want to feel that judgment. And then when I started to really think, open it up to a longer time horizon, I asked myself, Well, look, when you become successful, would you be the person that looks back at someone else who's brand new, who's showing themselves go through the process, who's willing to be vulnerable enough? Would you look at them and look down on them, or would you look at them and say, heck yeah, man, like keep going. Like I'm proud of you for putting yourself out there. I'm proud of you for showing up consistently. I'm proud of you for, being true to you. But I started to get really logical and I was like, yeah, of course I wouldn't do that. I was like, well, would you want to hang out with people who would judge a person at that stage in their life growing? It's like, no. So I was like, oh, so if the people start like throwing shade and start hating on me, are those people that I ever wanted to interact with to begin with? So they actually do me a favor. So it actually works in my benefit to put out the stuff that I feel I might get judged on. Because now whoever would judge me, thank you for showing me that you're someone I don't actually want to connect with right now. Thank you. Because I know that I need to keep the right people around me. And to be honest, it was a little confusing to know who was the right and who was the wrong person. But you just very clearly showed me that you're not the right person. So this is how I talk to myself. These were like the mental conversations I had with myself, right? And it took a lot of time. I didn't have this conversation all in one day, mostly because I had no one to talk. I was in the room by myself. I had no one to talk to. So I talked to myself, so after being able to get into rooms like this, I've been able to speed up these conversations and arrive to certain conclusions much sooner. So Dakota, I applaud you for like even sharing right now and like being a part of this conversation right now.
Dude, I really appreciate the answer as well. So thank you for that. I think there's a lot of resistance that I have just fell off during that conversation. And the idea of 2 points that I'm definitely taking away is just document my journey and, don't try to be like everyone else or don't don't worry about judgment. That's kind of leads to the second point, which was huge, is that how would I look, me as in my successful place in the future, how would I look back at someone that was just being vulnerable, documenting their situation and their journey? And, it kind of I don't know, like a double-edged sword where it cuts the people out that you don't want working with you, while also bringing in the people that, you do want to work with, that are actually cheering you on for doing that. And then I think also, whenever time comes, I'll be able to refer people to those, my journey, and people are going to eventually learn from me, which is awesome. So yeah, dude, huge. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Dude, thank you for asking that question.
Marlon, I wanted to throw a little something at Dakota before we let him go. And it's exactly kind of what you got from this, Dakota, is I grew up as a kid that stuttered, and I was horrendously teased for years. And it was really difficult to get up to talk to people at a point in time, but I've obviously got through that. In my journey in real estate and becoming visible in social media, one of the things I've done recently is I've created my own 30-day challenge, not in 30 consecutive days. It might take me 60 days, but to hold my phone up in front of my face and just do a 30 to 60 second video about whatever and anything at all, and post it to Instagram so it goes to my Facebook. And as I continue, if I can tie it into real estate, but the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. And it's all little steps. And it's exactly what Marlon was saying about being genuine, because as you present yourself, you need to be the person that your parents love, your kids love, your grandparents love, your grandkids love, your friends from high school, your neighbors. And as long as you stay true to yourself and be yourself and project, you'll get more comfortable with that. And then everybody will get to love you for the people who really know you to be. You are on with Marlon Johnson, brother. What's your question?
All right. So I actually just watched a video with Marlon in it with Tang. I can't remember her name, but I'm only like 4 days into sub 2. I'm in Florida, and I've been self-employed my whole life. So that's not an issue. Like, getting through the barriers of like fear of failure and all the other stuff. I mean, that's one thing. But one thing that I think a lot of people kind of, I guess, overlook is that fear of success. So I wanted to see if you had any like pointers on the like getting over that fear of like what happens if it goes right and I don't have systems in place.
Oh my gosh, that's a big one. Oh man, I love that you brought that one up because you're right. It's one that actually doesn't get spoken about often. And funny enough, today at our mastermind out here, we're at the Go Giver Mastermind. So if anyone knows any like history of like our like real estate market in Arizona, this is like the mastermind where Pace met Steve Trang and Brent Daniels and like really cool mastermind, really high level individuals. And we're speaking about that exact topic, right? This fear of success, right? You know, like you said, what happens if everything goes right? And what's actually really interesting, you know, and this is going to be hard for some people to believe. They're like, what do you mean what happens if everything goes right? See, we operate off of our self-identity, right? And we all, like, we can never outperform our self-identity. This is why, again, it's so important to know thyself. Because although we can't operate outside of our self-identity, at least we can't sustain that level of operation, we can change the self-identity. And what oftentimes happens, and we see this, we have a thermostat of how high we can reach as a threshold of how much money we can earn, how much business we can do, things of that nature. What happens is as we're starting to reach that threshold and we're getting ready to potentially surpass it, we begin to self-sabotage on some level, right? Maybe you've had great habits for the last, 60, 90, 120 days. And now that you're about to hit that breakthrough and it's finally about to start hitting that exponential growth, a voice kicks in that says, don't do that. Don't hire that person. Don't grow a little bit more. Like, let's just go out and party tonight. Let's just go out and have a drink. You've been doing so well. And something kicks in and it will begin to destroy and unravel, right? And that's where the inner work has to begin, right? The inner work, and we have to start to understand, why don't I want to grow? And oftentimes when we see individuals that are struggling with the, what happens if everything goes right? What happens if I become successful? What happens is that new, more successful version of you, that version of you has more responsibilities most of the time. You're responsible for more people. And the current version of you is thinking, oh crap, can I take that on? Because I need to be more disciplined as that next higher version. I need to create more systems, right? Like, here's what's really interesting. The higher you go, the more of you that next level demands. And that was really something that was cool and interesting that, like, we're talking about this today. So it's really, your question is very timely, because it's not necessarily that it's going to demand more in the sense of, sacrifice from a place of finances per se, right? Because as you start to put the systems in place, you're actually going to start to get more money in your pocket. You're going to start to get more time. However, it's going to demand more of you as a person, more of you as a leader, more of you of living into the things that you already know are the right thing. Because there are things that you currently know, I can guarantee it because it's the truth for all of us. There are things that we know are the right things to do that we're not currently doing. Maybe it's taking the time to actually sit back and work on the business and not just work in the business, whatever that thing may be. It's requiring more of you. It's requiring you give more of yourself. And that is a scary thing. However, the beautiful thing about being a part of these groups and being a part of these communities and being a part of these masterminds is you get to talk to men and women who have already gone there before us. And they're able to remind you and tell you with assurance, confidence, and conviction that it is worth the price, because you get to set the price. So they're going to tell you, get back in touch with your why. Like, really sit down and get back in touch with ultimately, why are you doing any of this? Like, what is the success for? What is the goal achievement for? What are you ultimately going for? And most of the time, I can tell you, it's going to be associated to a feeling. There's a feeling that you're trying to replicate. Maybe it was a feeling from when you were a child, when, everything was good, and the days, you could just get lost in the days, and you can get lost with the people. You had good people around you. Or I don't know what your thing is, but I would say plug back into the why. The higher up you go, the more in tune with your why you truly need to be. And it can't just be like a cute saying. It actually becomes the ethos behind what decisions you make. It becomes the standard behind your yeses and nos on what am I going to do. It's going to become a part of the compass of your priorities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got it. I guess so. For me, it's more like not having any of the systems in place. I've only been in real estate investing for the last like 3 to 4 days. I mean, since I got into sub 2. So I'm like taking in all this information, and like you, I learned really fast. So I just went out and I started applying from day one. I busted through 4 weeks in the first day, and I was like, all right, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm gonna go straight for it. And so I ended up getting like 3 or 4 leads right off the bat, and I'm starting to close them. I'm getting them, and then I'm like kind of hesitating, and then I lost like almost all of them. I have one more still on the hook, but I'm like, I had that hesitation, I noticed. And I mean, like I said, I've been self-employed my whole life and everything, basically. So like, it's not a matter of being afraid to fail, but it's that like slight hesitation of like, wow, if I mess this up, it could be a big, like a big deal. I run a Turo fleet as well. And then I actually recently went to a meetup with a couple of other sub 2 students. And I was talking to them about it, and we kind of came to this conclusion that like the mindset that I have around running my Turo fleet is very similar to this real estate investing stuff. And it's a lot of the same, like comping and figuring out what car you're going to get and everything, but it's adding a zero. That's all it is. But that bigger number for whatever reason for me is like, it stalls me out. As soon as I go and see that contract and I'm like, all right, I got to put this much earnest money down. And I'm like talking to him, getting it all like closed up. I stutter a little bit. And then I pause and I wait just too long. And then they want to back out. I'm like, shit. You know, I don't know if that gets easier, if there's any tricks around that. I mean, I try to just push right through because, I know for me, like right on the other side of fear is that like heaven of success and like all that stuff. I've done it before. It's just that like with real estate investing, I know for me, because like I don't have a lot of personal financial backing, but I know with being in sub 2, like that's not a problem. But for what reason that lack mindset sits back there, and it's like, if you succeed, then can you sustain it?
100%, man. And what I would say is this is new to you again, right? So, I mean, what you're experiencing, we've all experienced it. You've experienced it in your other businesses at the very beginning as well. It's the newbie mindset, right? It's that new when you're entering something brand new. It's like, oh crap, like I don't really know what I'm doing yet, right? And there's 2 ways to go about it, right? One way is exactly what you did, right? You get all the way up to a certain point and you fumble the ball, right? And that happens. But from that, you now have experience. You have an experience that wasn't there. When you fumbled the ball the first time, there was nothing behind it. There were no data points behind it. Now, the next time you're on the call, you have this data point of, hey, last time this is where I fumbled, so hold on tight, right? So you can go that way, which is just trial and error, and it works. Or my personal preference, I'm just like, screw this. I already know trial and error. I've learned it in every sport I've ever played. And then I also learned when I go and surround myself with a good team and put myself on a good team, I now get to inherit their skills, right? So I'd rather share the profit because I know what I'm getting back in return for the profit is time. You're condensing my time frame. So if I were in that case, I would literally, like one of the first things one of my mentors ever taught me was to say, hey, you know what? Before we move forward, I just got to be honest with you. My partner is actually the one that handles this kind of stuff. Is it all right if I get my partner on the phone? I just want to make sure that we don't have to, I just want to make sure that whatever I told you, we can actually honor, we can do, and that everything's good to go. So would it be okay? Like, I know you're the final decision maker on your side, but for me and my business, it's me and a partner here. So I just want to make sure that I get my partner on the phone. And that's why I'd plug into the sub 2 community. I'd reach out to different like studs on the sub 2. I'd reach out to the LTs of the world and the Elenas and the JJs and the Lucianos and the Tristans and the Oscars. And I'd get one of them to come on the phone with me and like, hey, can we do this deal together? I got this seller. Here's the situation. Basically just we need to get him to sign the contract. I also just want to get a second pair of eyes on the deal. Hey, do these numbers look good? Do you think if we locked it up here? Because the only thing that's causing you to hesitate is you don't have the data yet in your brain already that shows you this is a solid rock star deal. Once you get that, oh my gosh, like it's off to the races.
I did notice that. I actually sent a deal over to another sub 2 student, and I found it. I hesitated on it, but I sent it to him thinking like, hey, run this through your underwriters and see what happens. And they came out and they were like, pull the trigger, lock that thing. And I'm like, awesome. Called them, and then I waited too long. It was already under contract.
Yeah, so you're going to see speed matters in this business so much. And the beautiful thing is with the sub 2 community, you can have these people like ready on dial. Like I've had Will Iarza call me up like 2 weeks ago. He calls me. It's like, hey man, like I really need help. I got this person on the phone right now. Can you get on? Like we need to get this thing closed. And within 30 seconds, I was on the phone with the seller, and that thing went under contract the next morning. You know, so and plenty of people inside stuff too. So you're doing the right thing. You know, but like you said, you're only 4 days in, bro. This is exciting. You're already taking more action than people that have been sitting in there for 3 months.
Marlon, I wanted to throw a little something in there for Chris. Everybody's out there chasing the deal. You know, we all want to get the deal. But as Marlon says, we have an unbelievable community. And one of the things I kind of preach is chase a relationship, don't chase the deal. Build your friendships now, build your circle now, build your network now. Better to have your network in place and not need it than need a network and not have it. So build your relationships, build your circle, build your friendships. You know, Marlon and I have talked a couple times. Obviously, he's been on the Zoom call right now. We've not talked work at all. We've just talked about him, about me, maybe about speaking on the call, but I've been focusing on building my relationship with him. So when you see people that are really visible, get to know them, build the relationship, share yourself, let them get to know you for the person that, as I said earlier, that your family loves, your friends love. And then when these visible, successful people get to see you for the same great qualities that those people that really know you love you for, they're going to love you too. And so you build your support so that when you go to ask somebody for something, they're more than willing to help you, more than ready to help you. And like in my case, I don't know a lot, but if I can't help you, I guarantee you I can introduce you to somebody that can. Marlon knows a lot, but if it's not in his wheelhouse, I guarantee you he's going to be able to introduce you to somebody that can. So one of my favorite sayings is chase the relationship, don't chase the deal.
I love that. I love
Actually,
that.
Great. Let's take one more question. Hey, man, it's good to see you. Good to have you back. You are on with Marlon Johnson. What's your question?
Man, I got before I ask my question, you know, I'm very, very grateful to hear that, you know, a guy that's been doing this many deals struggled with what I'm currently struggling with, which is rejection. Rejection has been my biggest thing, still kind of is. It'll show up in the worst of times, you know, especially when, and I said this in our last Zoom, because I've had deals where I gotten close to the deal. You know, I do wholesaling right now. That's my starting point. But I would have those deals, and you know, I'm getting close. I'm like, yes, this is gonna be awesome. No, I'm not gonna get out yet. Sorry, y'all, 3-year-old. But I would get so close, and then next thing you know, the buyer will back out, and it was so crushing. It was so crushing that I literally, guys, I quit. I had quit real estate investing. I had given up on that. My question is, when you've had that many no's, what is it that keeps you going until you get that first final yes? And I mean, from start to finish.
Yeah, Vaughn, that's a good question. And, you know, I moved my head in closer just because it's a little hard to hear you. But essentially, you know, what I heard was after you've had so many no's, what is it that keeps you going to get that very first yes? Right? I'm correct. Like, give me a thumbs up. That's the question. Perfect. Oh, my gosh. Such a good question. And hopefully, if I do disappear, guys, I'm not running away, I promise. My phone just told me I'm on 10%. I put it in power save mode. We turned the brightness down. We're doing everything we can to keep this puppy going. So with the no's, first off, I want you to understand the no's are absolutely a part of this business. It is absolutely a part of every single business. So like when you get those no's, what you've actually got to do is you've got to change the response to the no's, the internal response, to recognize that it's actually a positive feedback, right? Like it's actually a part of you knowing that you're moving in the right direction, because the no's are actually a part of the game. So I was receiving a lot of no's. Like I said, I didn't get my first deal for 8 months, and I was hand dialing, so it was taking me a long time to get those no's. It's like I didn't have like a speed dialer that was getting me through my no's faster. So I'm just going no after no after no, to the point where, no joke, maybe I think it was month 5 or 6, I got cursed out so bad. Like, how dare you call during a pandemic? What sort of monster are you? You're just trying to steal people's houses. Get a real job. And I remember I put the phone down, and I didn't quite cry yet, but I was getting there. And I asked myself, I said, am I a bad person? I had never asked myself that question, but I said, this could be that's the only thing that must make any sense. Like, why else would these people be so mad at me? Why must they hate me so much? Right? It's just, I must be a bad person. And this was after I joined Sub 2. So I remember I reached out and I DM'd Pace, and I said, Pace, I want to come out to Arizona. I want to come to the office. I just want to work in the office for a day. Can I do that? Pace says yes. I get my ticket. I book my ticket. I fly out there, and I go because I just want to see how another wholesale operation's running. I only knew my own business. I didn't know anyone else's business. I didn't know any other wholesalers. I didn't have any other insight. So I show up to their office, seasoned closers, guys that have been already done 20, 30, 50 deals in the office, calling all day. I'm like, sweet, I'm about to get the sauce, Vaughn. Vaughn, I'm coming home with the sauce. It's about to be game over. What I watched and witnessed for 8 hours that day, a full day of calling with their team, is their team got told no from start to finish that day. None of them heard a yes. And here's what was amazing. At lunchtime, yo, you guys want to go get some lunch? Yeah. Energy's high. I'm like, the heck? Were y'all not listening to the no's you were just getting? Why are y'all so excited to go to lunch? At the end of the day, all right, good job today. Good work today, guys. Why are you all excited? Nobody closed the deal. Nobody got a yes. Why are you excited? And I started to realize no's were normal. And it was my misunderstanding of believing that the no's meant I was doing something wrong. Because in our business as wholesalers, we're not looking for houses. We're looking for people with problems. So when those people are telling us no, what they're really saying is, no, I don't have a serious enough problem that your skill set is meant to solve. You should be happy when like the no's happen, right? Because from the side of looking for the seller, looking for the lead, you only want to work with people that when you show up, they see you as a knight in shining armor. Wholesaling is a marketing business. We've got to get dialed in on being able to market to the right people so that our message is in front of the right audience. Now, when the buyers back out, that's a whole nother discussion, because that's where JJ's advice really comes in, where relationships. See, relationships don't screw each other over. But transactions, like people get screwed over on transactions all day and night. But when people value relationships, they don't want to throw that away. When you work with people who value what they have, which is their reputation, work with people who value their reputation. Like Vaughn, just about 3 weeks ago, I lost $5,000 on a deal because I value my reputation. Right? Because I said, you know what? I said I was going to do this. Turns out the deal was terrible, but I put the EMD down. $5,000 EMD out the window. Terrible deal. But I value my reputation. So now no one can ever come back and say, man, that Marlon guy, that Marlon character. Right? So when people show you who they really are, it's all right. Let them show you who you really are. Because if you know, again, long time horizon, you're going to be in this game a long while, Vaughn. You know that real estate, you know that this vehicle takes you to wealth. You know that this vehicle is not a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year vehicle, but this is a 5, 10, 15, 20 year vehicle that has the potential to change everything. You're in it for the long run. So you need to go get all the pretenders out of the way. You need to go get all those people out of you don't want to work. You don't want those sort of deals to work out, because be happy that they're screwing you over on these tiny little ones. Because when we start talking bigger numbers, 7, 8, and 9 figure deals, you want to really know who your crew is. You want to really know who you're going to war with, right? On all parts, because no matter what, recognize that everybody's on your team. The seller's on your team, the buyer's on your team, the transaction coordinator's on your team. Everybody is Team Vaughn. And when you can recognize that, you're going to realize that, hey, like, I'm not just looking for a one-time transaction with you. You're my teammate. we need to ride or die. We're going to be in this for the long run. So when people are telling you no, it's like, oh, cool, thank you. Like, I don't want my team made up of a bunch of randos. Right? Like, Vaughn, I've got people, because I solved their problem, I have some of my sellers becoming my private lenders.
Everybody, I want to thank you guys for being here for Marlon Johnson today. We had a fantastic call. Please follow us on Facebook, JJ's Mastermind Networking. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Flip Side Up with JJ. If you're watching this video right now on YouTube, please like Marlon's video and please leave a comment down in the comment section. Everybody else on the call, hang tight. We're going to the breakout rooms. Join me and Vaughn in the breakout rooms. Everybody else, we'll see you soon.